Because for 4 years, nothing was done to stop it in its tracks. And now it's been allowed to fester. And what happened last Friday? I went last Thursday with those two Israeli staffers. I was at the crime scene. I went to the embassy. It was horrific because this type of conduct should never be tolerated, and it's being tolerated only because of what did not occur for the last 4 years. We should have stopped it. How did we get here? Because we have tolerated. We have tolerated anti-Semitism for the last 4 years. And basically the Trump administration, and thank goodness President Trump is in office, Harris, he's not going to tolerate it. He's going to eliminate it. That's why I'm in this role right now. That's why Pam Bondi's the Attorney General, and Harmeet Dillon is the Civil Rights head.
That was Leo Terrell, senior counsel in the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division, speaking to Harris Faulkner, saying college campuses let anti-Semitism, quote, fester for the last 4 years. Woke ideology got so out of control at Harvard and at schools nationwide that President Trump says he's considering stripping Harvard of even more federal funding and instead giving $3 billion to trade schools. Let's welcome back to the show Harvard Law Professor Emeritus and constitutional lawyer and author, Alan Dershowitz. Professor Dershowitz, it's so great to see you again. Thank you so much for joining us. Professor, what do you see at Harvard that shows it's clearly violating students' civil rights?
Well, it's even worse than Mr. Terrell has said. Harvard is not only tolerating anti-Semitism in two of its schools, the Divinity School and the Public Health School. It's actually teaching it and fomenting anti-Semitism. You know, it's interesting. I just wrote a new book called The Preventive State, and in it, I predicted precisely what was going to happen in the District of Columbia. I predicted that when you have violence of this kind, and by the way, 2 Harvard students who engaged in violence and harassment against Jews were just rewarded. One was named the class marshal at Divinity School. The other one was given a $65,000 grant by Harvard to continue his anti-Israel activities. When you have that kind of activity, it's only a short step to taking a gun and shooting and killing 2 people, which is what happened. As the result of what happened at the District of Columbia, I was getting an honorary degree that next day. And the school, another school, had to get extra police guards and come up with a mechanism for removing me in the event there was an attempt on my life. Because every prominent Jew, every prominent supporter of Israel now has a target on their back, in part as a result of what not only Harvard tolerated, but at least 2 schools at Harvard actively taught anti-Semitism. So something has to be done. Now, I think the president may have gone a bit too far by cutting off all funding. It should continue funding for cancer research and other scientific research and allow students to come from areas where there is no anti-Semitism. But his heart is in the right place, and something has to be done. And I'm glad that there are at least some efforts to try to stop Harvard and other schools from fomenting this kind of plague of anti-Semitism.
You know,
that's the biggest human rights problem that America faces.
It's outrageous and a disgrace that now you're under threat, right? And this is after, as you point out, those 2 staffers at the Israeli embassy were slaughtered, you know, in a really heinous fashion in our nation's capital. Let's talk about, you just mentioned Harvard's and the federal cutoff of spending for Harvard. Harvard's endowment is more than $53 billion alone. That's bigger than a Wall Street hedge fund. Nearly a dozen Ivies have a $283 billion in endowments. Government has massively increased spending on grants, student loans, and bailouts for schools. Tuition is at 4 times the rate of inflation, and colleges are padding their salaries and administrative staff with irresponsible spending while they're allowing this woke ideology and rampant anti-Semitism and bullying of students on campus. You know, these Israeli leaders have said it doesn't go far from words to bullets, as you just pointed out. So something has to be done to stop it and clean it out for good.
I agree, and I think that I'm praising President Trump for starting at least a dialogue about how to deal with these issues. As usual, when you have a dialogue, it may start by going a little bit too far. But I think that what we need to do is have targeted defunding of all, for example, the Divinity School and the Public Health School should be completely defunded. The Carr Center for Human Rights at Harvard, which is a cesspool of anti-Semitism, should be defunded. Any student who has made anti-American, anti-Israel, anti-Christian statements should not be allowed into the country. There's no First Amendment right to come into the country and attack your host nation. So it's a good beginning, but there's a lot of work to still be done.
Harvard professor emeritus Alan Dershowitz, thanks for being with us tonight. It's good to see you again.